Hello everyone, welcome back to another week. This week we're looking at the engraved commemorative and definitive sets of the George V period for the British Commonwealth. Probably arguably the nicest aspect to this reign. I think probably the most popular material. It falls into two basic categories. There's the early part of the reign from 1910 to about 1925. And then the very later part of the reign from about 1933 up through 36. Um, the sets from 1910 to 25 are generally almost all definitive sets. There are a few commemorative issues that were issued for some of the B countries and a couple of others, but by and large, they're all commemoratives. Going all the way back to 1910. Waterloo and De La Rue were the major printing firms at this time. And 1934 to 36, a lot of them are what we call long commemorative sets, where they cover the full range of values from the halfpenny up through the pound, but they are actually commemoratives. And in most instances, there's just the one printing of each set, maybe two in some cases. These are a lot of the sets I don't have in very much of in this sale, and that's just because they all contained high values, and they're generally quite expensive. But I think you'll find that the slideshow I'm presenting you here in this video is going to cover most of the designs, and it's going to give you a very good flavor for what there is to collect. There are varieties in the form of re-entries and shades, which I'll discuss a little bit at the end of the video, and as well as watermark varieties and perfs to a lesser extent. Those are the main areas of interest with these stamps. So without any further ado, I'll just take this off the tripod. I'll show you what I have here. The photos are a little bit blurry in some instances, but they should still be clear enough to give you an idea of what the stamps look like. So here we've got Barbados. So Barbados started off with a badge of the colony design that's really quite ornate. And then they moved to a smaller one with postage and revenue at the top. This design was used for the George VI reign as well. And then here we have the victory issue for the Allied victory in World War I. The Bahamas, we've got the airmail from 1935, the tercentenary issue of 1920, and a war tax overprint on the Queen's Staircase definitive. So this was part of a mixed surface printed and engraved definitive set. This was the engraved design used throughout the reign. Okay, Ascension, this is the only A country that I have in the sale. The other one being Antigua, which had a tercentenary set in 1933. I don't have that set to show you here, but it's going to be similar to many of the designs that are here. So this is the Ascension set. This was printed by De La Rue in 1934. Nice set that goes, I think, up to 5 shilling, and it alternates between these two designs, and I believe a third design with the mountains. There are these teardrop flaws that you can collect on certain values where there's George appears to be crying, and they're quite valuable. But other than that, there's not really much other than the basic set. Cyprus has the 1928 50th anniversary of British rule. That goes all the way up to the pound, with the pound being a really beautiful stamp. Then there's the 1934 pictorial issue, which includes some values with George V in the design and others that don't have his portrait. The ones that don't have his portrait, where some of those designs were recycled for the George VI set, as were the designs with the portrait switched. This is a Waterloo set, and that's a Bradbury Wilkinson set. So um, there's quite a bit of interest on this. Bermuda. Okay, so Bermuda we had Tercentenary of Legislative Institutions. That's a commemorative issue from 1920. This is the late George VI stamp from 1935. And that design went on to be used by George VI. I believe that's Piaget Parish. And then here we've got the Caravel design. So that's the major definitive stamp design used from 1910 up to about 1935 for Bermuda. There's 3 different dies found on the halfpenny, and there's a number of different perfs and wet and dry printings and all kinds of shades that can be collected on this design. It's a very, very nice set to collect. And of course, it's in both watermarks, block CA and script CA. Okay, so here we've got Basutoland. This is a Waterloo design, as one might be able to tell by the simplicity of the design. And it was a 1933 issue, so it's one of the late ones. The crocodile next to the river scene. That was used by the George VI period by substituting the portrait with George VI's portrait as well. Although I think the George VI set had contained more values than the George V. Then next we have Gibraltar. And we've got this design with the Rock of Gibraltar. This set comes in 2 different perfs. And you'll see I've jumped all the way from C up to G. So what's missing here is Falkland Islands. There's a number of issues for Falklands that I don't have. The centenary issue being one, which is a very famous set. But yeah, I mean, for Gibraltar, most of the stamps are surface printed stamps. There's just this one little set that appears in the early 30s in 2 different perfs, and it's 4 or 5 values. But that design goes on to be adapted and used by the George VI stamps. Okay, Gambia. So this design, the badge of the colony with the elephant. So the elements of the design are used in George V set, or George VI, I should say. But this particular design is not repeated. It's an interesting set. There's lots of different perfs, comb and line perfs on this issue, as well as the 2 different watermarks, a fair number of shades as well. And an interesting set that doesn't receive a whole lot of attention from people, but probably should. Okay, so we do have some Falklands here. It just appeared a little bit later. So the design on the right is the side face portrait that starts in 1910 and is found in both the watermarks, both block and script CA. There's lots of different shades on that set, as well as comb and line perfs, and some of them are quite scarce. There are some expensive stamps. The stamp in the middle is the 1934 definitive issue with the penguins. That does go all the way up to the pound, and there's comb and line perfs on that set as well. Although there's not really a whole lot of shades or other varieties listed in the catalogs. And then the 3-penny stamp on the left here, that's part of the tercentenary, or part of the centenary issue in 1933. The set that goes all the way up to the pound. Interestingly, even low values like the 3-penny catalog quite a bit for this set. In that regard, it's very similar to the Wilberforce issue of Sierra Leone. Okay, then Ireland. Here we've got 2 different seahorses. So these are the seahorses were Great Britain's high values, and here they're overprinted with the Irish Free State 1922 overprints. If you look closely, you'll see on the left here we have the Bradbury Wilkinson printing with the horizontal shading in the medallion and a wide date, wide spacings between the numerals and the date. And then over here we've got the Waterloo re-engraved design in a slightly redder brown. That's got the cross hatching in the portrait. And if you look at the date, you see it's much narrower, more closely spaced than on the Bradbury Wilkinson stamp. And before this overprint, there was the earlier overprints, the Dollard and Thom overprints that are found on the earlier printings of the seahorses, so the De La Rue and Waterloo printings. And in fact, I mean, Ireland wasn't the only country to do this. Nauru, Morocco agencies, they overprinted seahorses as well. Okay, Grenada. So this pictorial issue from Waterloo, this is one of the later sets. This is 1934. Not a whole lot of varieties for the George V set, but then this design was utilized by George VI, and there's perforation and shade differences on the George VI set. But it's an attractive set. It's a little more ornate than Waterloo's usual work, but if you look closely and compare this with other Waterloo productions versus De La Rue, you can kind of tell that it's a Waterloo set. Okay, Gilbert and Ellice Islands. So this tree definitive, this is the earliest definitive from 1911, printed by De La Rue. And it's just a couple of values in a much larger set that contain most of G&E's stamps were surface printed. Kenya, Uganda, Tanganyika. Again, this set here is a late George V set from 1934, I believe. Again, not a lot of varieties listed in Gibbons on the George V set. There is, on the 5 cent, there's the rope here. It's normally not joined to the sail. That's the common printing. But there's a variety where it's joined to the sail, which I believe it is on this stamp. So that's the only real variety. Everything else, there might be some shades and a couple of other things, but it's a fairly basic set for George V. But again, not so for George VI, which utilized the same designs and has many different perf and paper and shade varieties. Okay, then moving on to Jamaica. So Jamaica's an interesting mix. They were a colony that utilized a combination of engraved stamps and surface printed stamps. Although the designs from the 1920s, this set here, these two stamps are from the set from the 1920s and early 30s that's found on both watermarks. And most of the stamps in these sets are engraved, and they're quite beautiful, and the sets themselves are not very expensive. And the listings in Gibbons appear to be quite simplified, compared with the number of different shade variations and things that I've encountered just from looking at stamps from these sets. So they're a great recommendation if you want to delve further into the sort of beautiful bicolored engraved stamps. Very good candidate for specialization. On the right is one of the late values from 1932. It's similar to a design used in the George VI period, but with George VI's portrait. This one doesn't have a portrait. And so that's Jamaica. Then Iraq. Okay, so Iraq was a British possession for a little while after the First World War, up to about the early 30s. So here you've got Turkish stamps. The stamp in the center and the stamp on the right are Turkish stamps that have been overprinted, or sorry, I should say the one in the middle is a Turkish issue overprinted. The one on the right is Iraq. I think this is printed by either De La Rue or Bradbury Wilkinson. This one, I can't remember who prints this. I think it's actually British, but I'm not super knowledgeable about Turkey. But this particular overprint makes it a British Commonwealth stamp. And then over on the left, you've got the King Faisal set. That's Bradbury Wilkinson. And if you get to know Bradbury Wilkinson's work, you can instantly recognize from the ornateness of the design and the frame that it's BW. Morocco agencies. So these are seahorses. Bradbury Wilkinson and re-engraved Waterloo with the French currency surcharges, which are the cheapest of the types that are used for Morocco. But again, there's some shade variations and things in these that are not found in the catalog. Montserrat. So Montserrat had a centenary issue, or tercentenary rather, because this is 1632 to 1932. A tercentenary issue that looks in many respects similar to the Gibraltar design. I believe this one also had perf variations on it, but I can't be sure without looking it up. In any event, it's a late set, and that was in use for just a few years. Okay, then Malaya. There's a couple of the states. Kedah was a state that had these sheaf designs and the oxen and plow. And this goes all the way back to 1911, and with watermark changes was used all the way up into the 30s. Not a particularly expensive set, especially with the sheaf stamps, and there's lots of plate varieties and shades and watermark differences to collect. Nyasaland, this is a Waterloo set, the cheetah and badge. Northern Rhodesia, another Waterloo set. This went on to be utilized by George VI. North Borneo. Okay, so this is early Waterloo. These are from the 1910s up through the 1930s. Beautiful, beautiful stamps. Lots of opportunity for re-entries and shades on these. St. Lucia. So this is a De La Rue production, which again, if you get to know their work, you can tell from the ornateness of the designs and the type of ink and the colors that these are De La Rue. This set doesn't have a whole lot of listed varieties. There's a few perf variations which have to do with, I believe, coils or booklet stamps. And this is a late set. This appears, I think, right in 1936, if I'm not mistaken. St. Helena, that's the centenary issue. And Rhodesia, that's the Admiral issue. So this is Waterloo. And here you can see this is the same basic design, but 4 distinctly different shades. This is a very complicated set along with the double head set with George V and Queen Mary. Lots and lots and lots of shades, 2 or 3 different perforations, and all kinds of varieties to collect, including re-entries. So you could spend a whole lifetime specializing and collecting nothing but that set. Okay, South Africa. So the very first stamp of South Africa, the opening of the Parliament, the 1927 issue. So this type of design was used all the way up until the early 50s, but most of the stamps after 1928, they're all photogravure. So it's only the very, very first set that was engraved. Most of these stamps, most of the time, are collected as pairs in order to get both inscriptions, both languages. but this one does have quite a value as yeah, there's quite a bit of value to the early sets, so they're worth collecting as singles. Sierra Leone, so the Wilberforce issue, there's two values here from 1933, and there's a definitive set from 1932, and again, that's a Waterloo production. Those are Bradbury Wilkinson. Sarawak, so I believe this is Bradbury Wilkinson, if I'm not mistaken. Charles Viner Brooke, just two stamps from that set. And St. Vincent, this is De La Rue, and these designs were found in both watermarks. Southern Rhodesia, so there's the Victoria Falls. This design was used in George VI period as well. And these George V stamps are found, this is Waterloo, and they're found with 2 or 3 different perfs, I think 12, 14, and 11 and a half. Sudan, so this is pretty blurry. That's the General Gordon 50th death anniversary issue. That's the airmail issue. Most of the stamps of Sudan are surface printed, but this is the engraved stamps that were used by this colony. Southwest Africa, so similar designs to South Africa, also issued in pairs. These are just singles. I didn't have any pairs to show you, but those are what the singles look like. Tanganyika had a set with the giraffe. I only have a few of the low values, but this is a De La Rue set. Hopefully you can tell by just looking at the colors and the designs. And then finally Swaziland, which is an enclave within South Africa. And this is a De La Rue set. And it's fairly simple for the George V issue, but for the George VI period, it gets very complicated. And so there you have it. Hope you enjoyed looking at this, and enjoy collecting. Thanks. Bye.